And welcome back to the MoKan Sports Report, back for a third consecutive day, which is the longest me and Joe have ever met in a row. Today we're going to talk about a bit more about the Missouri side, especially mid-Missouri and St. Louis, as we are roughly 24 hours from recording from basketball in Missouri. They kick off on the 21st. I just got back from watching Rockbridge, their inter-squad game. I've got some notes on how the Bruins could fare in mid-Missouri. I'll be seeing Hickman in battle very soon. I see Hickman Friday and Saturday this week. So we should have a decent idea and kind of what the CMAC conference looks pretty quick. I think it could be one of the best conferences in mid-Missouri. And then we'll kind of get into some southwest and southeast stuff here in the next couple days as well. First, welcoming Joe back.
Yeah,
Some potentially interesting matchups in pre-Thanksgiving basketball here.
there's a few things I want to say. One, things basketball before Thanksgiving, and I'm not talking professional or college, but high school basketball for Thanksgiving is or should be illegal. I think Kansas does it right. I'm from Kansas, but I'm from Missouri, but I'm in Kansas right now. That's kind of where I'm covering. But I'll actually be back in Kansas City, hopefully watching some jamboree, some fun high school basketball again before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's so interesting that like there's games tomorrow, and then there's schools in Kansas City that have jamborees on Saturday. So it's like
Yep,
Raytown's jamborees on Saturday, but on Saturday I'll be in Mexico, Missouri, watching
not the country. Yeah.
not the country. We've gotten that. Mexico, Missouri for Mexico and Hickman. They've got a really good 8 game showcase with some small class schools going on there. It's an all day thing. Probably won't be there all day, but definitely going to get Mexico and Hickman on the camera. You'll see that on Sunday's episode as well. But as we mentioned, action kicks off on Thursday of this week. 5 games, the best of which is Springfield Central taking on Link Academy. I'm not 100% sure that it's not an exhibition. I think
It might not count towards their actual, yeah.
Mission counted it last year,
Okay. It
but
might count again.
I don't think
I mean,
Central did though. Like everything that they posted, I think their record is one different than what Misha has it as. Irregardless, Link handled business. They won 73 to or 76 to 38. The game felt closer at times. It was closer at the beginning, but it was kind of a tale of how good Central could be at times.
and and you play these games not necessarily to win. I mean, of course you always want to win, but sometimes you just play teams that on paper are better than you, and it helps you in the long run, you know. They do lose Tariq Brooks to college, went to Missouri Southern State. Rue Wells went to Liberty High School in Kansas City, but most of the core of their team remains. Bryce Walker, Devin Sanford, Keon Ipps, Jordan Pittman. I mean, they got some guys who can play. I mean, these are 10 plus, uh, like almost all of them are 10 plus, 5 plus
Mhm.
uh, type of guys for points, rebounds, or points assists. They got some great defense. So yeah, they may not win, but I mean, this is a type of game that you play early so
Yeah.
that you can be better in the long run.
Yeah, and I think this game's really going to benefit Devin Sanford and Jordan Pittman as guys who are going to be they're in the supporting cast of the Keon Epps and Bryce Walker show. I think Keon Epps was
Yeah,
the player in Southwest Missouri last year. 17.8 points, almost 8 assists a night, which
that's insane.
in the high school level is insane.
I mean, there's only
Still,
32 minutes. Like,
right, 3 steals. He's an all-state guy. Bryce Walker was big on the boards for them. He had 7 rebounds and 3 blocks a night. I mean, but Devin Sanford and Jordan Pittman are going to be the guys that win or lose them games this year because you know what you're going to get out of Keon Epps and Bryce Walker. We've known this for a long time. They're both, longtime starters in this program, really mainstays in the lineup throughout the entire time that Jordan Epps has been the head coach. That's Keon's dad. They were freshmen when he took the helm there. I really do think that they have the potential to be as good, if not a better team than they were last year. They went to the Final Four. They beat Oak Park for third. If Sanford and Pittman can make just a gradual step forward and they can continue to be I mean, at the top end with Keon Epps and Bryce Walker, if they continue to be that team, there's a good chance that they could disrupt and potentially win a state title.
it's hard to do better than top four. But I mean, I mean, they have what it takes, especially their regular season is not easy. So some people might, again, on the Kansas side, that would hurt your chances in the playoffs. But for the Missouri side, I mean, I think it actually helps you.
There
So
is no reason in Missouri that you should be playing bad non-con games to stack wins. And
I mean,
Kansas,
every once, I mean, if they're in your conference, you have to. But yeah, on non-cons, there shouldn't be a single team that is like at least not a challenge. If you're Oak Park and there's, if you even have to travel, you got to travel to Arkansas, or you got to travel to Oklahoma, or you
right?
got to travel to Shawnee Mission Northwest, you do it.
Yeah, it's not hurting you because the standings aren't entirely record based.
Yeah.
So you go to
As
the
I mean,
yeah,
and
you go
all
to
you
the
have to do is
seeding
win your
meeting as a
conference
coach.
games, and you win your conference. So it's not like you're jeopardizing your conference play or
Right.
anything.
And you go to the seeding meeting in February with the coaches and you're like who
You're
cares
going
if
to
we
count
lost?
this
Like
loss
you
to
guys
this
didn't
team
play
in
late.
Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're gonna really hold losing to Link Academy, who's gonna compete for a national championship against us. I mean,
exactly.
can't can't really fault them for that.
No.
Uh, on to Friday's games where we have our first ranked game of the year on Friday, November 22nd. We've got number 11 John Burroughs taking on number 17 Ladue. Just to get right into it, Joe, who you got?
I like Ladue a lot. They're kind of scrappy, kind of, kind of just fun to watch. They got some talent all around. I like the duo of Tristan Reed and Pearson. I think they're gonna be just a little bit too much for the Rams. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. I think I'd go Ladue. But what about you?
I think Burroughs is going to take this one. Although Burroughs does lose a talented guard, a longtime program guard. Uh, Tristan Reed, I think, could be one of the best players in the country. Sheik Pearson as well. I think Sheik Pearson's a little bit more raw than Tristan Reed is. But I think it's going to be hard for Ledoux to match up with him size wise. I mean, Tristan Reed is 6'8". The tallest player on Ledoux's roster that I can remember from last year is 6'4". So unless they hopped in the portal and got a big man that I don't know about, I think it's going to be a tough matchup for them. Dwayne Foley, Sam Goldner, and Pearson Calvert are all big losses for this program. They were the team's three leading scorers.
Yeah.
Jack and Tressai Edwards and Jack Edgerton are going to have to step up for this program. They're going to have to step into those roles rather quickly, honestly.
Yeah.
When you look at Ladue, I think that because of their coaching and because of historically how good of a program they are, I think that they're still going to remain a top 25 team.
Yeah.
But they're kind of in like a weird purgatory kind of thing where you're like, we're not quite sure. You can't, they're in like that really weird spot where you're like, we don't really think you can win a state championship, but you're probably going to beat a ranked team at some point.
I think I'm just kind of an underdog guy.
Yeah.
I like and I
You got
and I
to
know
be.
they don't have the size. You made a great point. They don't have the size. I kind of like the small ball teams, the
Mhm.
the the 2022 Warriors, the the
Yeah, they're
uh
gonna have to shoot the lights out. And I think that
I kind of like it. But of course, if they aren't shooting well, they're not there's no chance in this game.
I
But
cannot predict with any reasonable doubt what John Burrow's offense is going to look like. But based off of the film that I watched last year, getting Sheik and Tristan the ball is paramount. And the
yeah,
thing is the one hole in both of their games is that they are not high post bigs. They're not. They're pick and roll bigs, but they're not like a Julius Randle, get him the ball in the mid post and let him go to work. That's just not their game. So I'm interested to see with new guards in the lineup, or not even new guards, but not program staple guards in that lineup, how they're going to be able to kind of make that pivot and get the ball into the post to the two of the five best players in Missouri and Sheik Pearson and Tristan Reed.
it'll be a
Also on
good
Friday
game either
night,
way. Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be a good game. Promises to be, especially in the early season. Also on Friday night, reigning, defending Class 6 champion. There's no A. We know there's no A. Class 6 champion, Cardinal Ritter. They opened the year against U City. This was an incredibly good game last year. 66-63, I believe, was the final. Came down to almost a game winner. Ritter was kind of an odd bird team last year where they started the year like 4-12 and they come back, they win the state championship. They played such a tough out of St. Louis schedule. They were all over the place all season long and they come back to win the title. this is not the same Ritter team. I think both of them have ranked potential, both Ritter and University City U City. Um, what are we thinking in this matchup, Joe?
There's a few things I want to say. One, I know there's not an A, and I didn't make that graphic, and I saw the Twitter post, but I mean, is it that important? Okay. Anyways,
It is. No, it is.
I
It's a style
I
thing.
get it. I get it for sure. I absolutely get it. I know you will not agree with me on this. Um, and that's fine. But I'm gonna go Ritter. I think there's a few things I want to say. One is I think there's just a culture at a school. You know, U City, you know, might honestly have the better team. Ritter lost a lot of players, but Ritter has that culture with football, basketball. I mean, not that you can correlate their football team like, oh, because KU's basketball team has been historically good, their football team's good. I get that's not a thing, but I think kind of when you have that building, that spirit in the crowd from your
Mhm.
fans and coaches that talk to each other and know like we can do it on football, why can't we do it in basketball? I think there's kind of some corresponding correlation there. Also, yeah, they lost nine seniors, but the first game of the season, they just won state. I don't think I can pick against them. What about you?
Yeah, from a logic standpoint, I agree, but it's not like comparatively, I don't think that like championship burnout really exists in high school.
Yeah.
Like when a team wins a championship, they're usually at least pretty good the next year. Like Ritter is not going to be a bad team. There's just going to be a learning curve there that didn't exist last year because they were so senior laden. I think U City wins this game. I think they deserve to win it last year. Ritter's leading scorer coming back is Oscar Patterson with 4.1 points per game. So you've got guys that are, it's next man up mentality. And I totally agree that the culture at Ritter promotes winning in such a way that you have to, they always have a dog in the fight. They always do. I think it's going to be as close of a game as it was last year. But Myel Taylor, Jaden Creighton, 23 points per game put together. I think that they're just going to be too much on opening night at home. I think Ritter is a much better team than they look like on paper. I think they will be a 18 plus game winning team. I just think that U City, on paper at the beginning of the year, with what they're bringing back, is the better team, and I'm going to give that to them.
Yeah, I don't, I don't disagree with you. I think there was a lot of U City fans that were unhappy that they were ranked seventh in the class for the preseason rankings. Um, but I don't know. I've always been the person of the mentality of like, don't care about the rankings, prove them wrong. So
Yeah, and most of the guys are like that. It's less of
for sure.
a we're worried
It's
about
less
the
of the team, it's more of the fans, for sure.
no, and some like there's guys that come after us. Like I know Zaire Collins has kind of interacted with a lot of our media recently. The player rankings is one thing that we
Sure.
knew we were going to get a ton of player pushback on that.
Sure.
But the team rankings, it's really guys that are like, hey man, like we feel like you're disrespecting what we bring to the table, especially in the preseason. And I think that players that really understand what we do are just going to chalk it up to like we have numbers from last year, we have film from the summer, we have rumblings from how good practice has been, and that's it.
And I think people probably do get it, but I don't know if they do to the full extent of like how hard preseason rankings can be. Like you could be really lucky and just KU's one and then they're great. But you could be like North Carolina's one and then they go and miss the March Madness bracket. And it's the
Right.
same thing with college football. It's the same thing with high school basketball. It's the same thing with high school football. I mean,
You
it's the same
kind
realm. It's like you think like
of
Capon, we could be completely right and they're ninth, 10th, top 10 team in Kansas. Or they could really fall off a cliff, losing three of their five starters last year. So,
yeah, I think that one of the important things as Joe kind of you back with us? We good?
yeah.
Yeah, you lagged out for a second. Uh
Oh,
yeah,
my bad.
no, you're good. I think that you obviously you don't go into it knowing that you're going to be wrong, but when you write rankings, you kind of have to be emboldened as to teams that you are higher on than other people and teams that you are lower on than other people. It's subjective. Like that's the thing when we used to get into it with those guys in that soccer podcast all the time. It is unless you are using math, like a pure mathematical formula, there's no such thing as an objective ranking. Like the AP poll is not objective. It's a bunch of people's subjective opinions that are put together. And
piled together.
that is the best way to compile a ranking. It's undoubtedly the best way. But also like the AP poll always in the preseason has a team that sucks,
Florida
but
State.
good. Florida State, North Carolina in basketball. Like it happens.
Yeah.
These are just things that happen, and the more you're around sports, the more you just kind of come to terms with that there's going
Yeah,
to be. That's why we play games.
for sure.
Why the games are played. Final interesting game on the spread for Friday is Chaminade. They are at home against Georgia's North Cobb Christian. Uh, I'm just going to guess that nobody watching this pod is a big fan of North Cobb Christian School in Georgia. They went 20-7 last year. They were a good program. They didn't, weren't a big game winner or anything like that, but they're a ranked team in Georgia. No slouch of a matchup. I hate to be a homer, but I do think Chaminade is going to take this one. They've got the upper hand, in my opinion. Thoughts?
I'm gonna take a word out of Shaquille O'Neal's mouth. I'm not familiar with their game, but I gotta pick Chaminade. I mean, the size that they possess with Ben Winker, they have elite guard play, elite wing play. Uh, Johnny Jordan is, I mean, one of the most consistently uh, and most efficient guards there is. The White brothers are excellent. I mean, this team is special. So I don't see them losing their opening game, much less many games this year at all.
Yeah, I think they play a tough enough schedule where they're going to come into the tournament with a couple losses. But as you mentioned, Ben Winker as a true big and an offense that has two other guys than in most offenses would be a big. Ben Winker's 6'11", if I'm not mistaken. The White brothers are 6'8" and 6'7". The last time that I remember looking at their listings, they were 6'8" and 6'7".
I mean, they're not even a high school team. Like that's, I mean,
Right. You are quite possibly playing the largest high school team. And
and
Johnny
that's
Johnny
no, so
Jordan's not.
I'm not. I was gonna go back a few days ago where you were talking about Oak Park versus Chaminade, and if that was to be the state matchup, and I like,
You can't
yeah,
match
I
up
mean
with
they are so big. I
if
mean,
you
and not that if Z can get hot or if Caleb or Corbin, I mean anything can happen.
right.
But, I mean they got size. So
And the only thing that they don't do at an incredibly high level is shoot threes. And they don't have to. When you've got three guys above 6'8", like you're going to be fine down low.
yeah,
You're going to rebound well, so you're going to be able to miss good looks because you're going to get a lot of second chance opportunities. But they have one really true shooter in Colin Keller on their roster. He's going to have to knock down from outside if they're going to want to win very close games. They're going to
yes,
get some tough ones, non-con play. I think that this year is their year. I would have to guess that they were going to be my 6'8" pick. Um, if the White brothers can be more efficient from outside, this team goes from probably the best team to, oh my God, I don't think anybody can beat them.
yeah.
And
In Missouri,
yeah, I'm interested to see how well Johnny Jordan can play as a true facilitator. Obviously, that's kind of been his role. He's very good at it. He did well in the summer circuit with that role, but he can also score the ball. He's great in the mid range. Excellent finesse player. A really fun watch, just from top to bottom. It's tough to bet against Chaminade in any way.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, even historically, Brad Beal, Michael Porter Jr. Chaminade is just a basketball team. They're a basketball school, and the world just has to deal with that.
yeah.
Name another Chaminade alum. It's a Mizzou player, current Mizzou player. Football.
Um, um, is Brady Cook Chaminade?
Yes, Brady Cook was a Chaminade
There we
sport.
go. Snap that.
On set, yeah, Kansas City guy knew that. Mizzou man himself, Joe. Moving on to Saturday, the big game on Saturday that I want to get at is Hickman, Mexico at the Gary Filbert Classic. I believe this is like the 46th, 45th Gary Filbert Classic. I'm excited. It's the most excited I've been to drive 45 minutes ever. Um, I like Mexico a lot. Mexico has been good at basketball since before we've been doing this job. Like they're the most consistent, underrated force in Class 4. I remember they had Carney when Brennan Watkins was in when it was Brennan Watkins was at Carney and he had like 26 a night. They beat Northtown, and so I continued to follow them, and they played. Maybe it was Van Horn that played Mexico and got beat that year too, but. Um, Mexico is kind of the buzzsaw that everybody all the Kansas City schools ran into in Class 4. Um, I'm really looking forward to it.
I don't. What year was that? What year you're
It would have been
referring to?
my sophomore year, junior year, or
Okay, okay,
or maybe
yeah,
my
yeah, that makes
junior
sense.
year,
That
senior
makes
year.
sense.
I'll
Yeah,
look it up after this, but
I got you. And that's that.
it
I
was
think it's gonna be really
when
good. What was up?
I know it was when Solers was at Van Horn and they had one really, really elite. No, they beat Mexico. They beat Mexico 91 to 83. It was when Jaden Monday had 39 that night. Jaden Monday is we used to be a Washburn.
Yeah,
He
was that
used
your sophomore year?
2020, it was the 2020-21 year. So yes, my sophomore year.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
The end of
I think this could be a great game. Um, as you said, Mexico's really consistent. But Hickman brought back a lot of big returners. They won a very tough district last year. Um, it's going to be hard going on the road. And I'm also kind of surprised that this is going to be your favorite 45-minute drive of your life.
Yeah, well, like thinking about it, what from Kansas, where we grew up, 40
The
minutes.
drive to Plattsburgh or Mill Valley, those weren't terrible. Those were the Mill Valley drive was pretty exciting.
Yeah. Which no, the Lawrence drive was
The
the
Lawrence drive,
the
that
Lawrence
one
drive
was
was I stand corrected. The drive back from Lawrence when we did Lawrence, the
the
Liberty
Liberty versus
Olathe
yeah,
West game at
that
Lawrence.
was
Yeah, didn't we
stories to
stop at
tell.
McDonald's? Didn't we stop at McDonald's on that drive back?
I we had to. Landon was crippled. Landon, yeah, yeah.
Triple line, we got a bunch of cookies, yeah.
Oh,
We sat there for like 25 minutes
w-
because there's one McDonald's in Lawrence.
we got to make a story time podcast. All
We
right,
gotta do
all
this.
right, back to
Back to Hickman, Mexico. Um, yeah, you can't really underestimate Hickman. They bring back Brock Camp. He's going to be kind of a marquee player in this matchup. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Brock Camp later when I get into Rockbridge. Um, I think I give Mexico the edge in this matchup. Um, they bring back Jaden Eldridge and PJ Perkins, Marcus Perkins, who they could be one of the best duos in all of Class 4, I think, when it all is said and done. They average a combined 25.1 points per game, so that's really half of the scoring output for a regular team. I talked to Zach yesterday about how like 50 points a game is kind of the standard for a game by game if you want to compete in Kansas. I think it's maybe a little bit higher in Missouri. Um, Perkins grabbed 8.8 rebounds last year as well, and he is not a true big by any means. He's kind of an inside out guy. Just picked up a couple big offers. I think Simpson College offered him. Really interesting player to watch in Class 4. I think he'll definitely be an all-state guy. I think he could contend in mid-Missouri for some maybe mid-Missouri awards. But like I said, I like Mexico a lot. I think they probably have the edge in this matchup.
yeah. They are very good, but I mean, and this is not to underestimate Hickman or say that they can't win. They're 22nd heading into the season. And you've talked about it. Brock Camp is really good. Committed to play football at Colorado State. And he averaged what 16 and 10 last year. Uh, and I don't know. I think he shows flashes of potential either last year or this summer at Gateway. And he could give Mexico a problem. I mean, Hickman can win this game. It's just on the road versus a good, consistent, efficient team could be tough.
Seeing Brock Camp at his commitment versus what he looked like last year, he looks leaner. He
Yeah.
looks if he plays how he played in the summer, he's going to be like a 20 and 13 guy this year, which I think would probably be the best mark in Columbia. Brandon Rooks, Vernell Holt at Battle are going to compete for that spot as well, and then we'll
Yeah.
get into some of the Rockbridge guys here in a minute, but it's going to be a tough game. I think after warm-ups. I will give you a very in-depth uh pick on this game, but I need to see, how they're looking day of a little bit to give you a really good pick there. But
Yeah.
I just where I'm at now, I think I'm gonna say Mexico, even though that would be a rankings upset.
The
You know,
road is really, I mean,
mhm.
I'll let you get to the last subject, but the road can be tough. I mean, that's
Yeah,
simple
45
fact,
minute drive
especially
on
in high
a
school.
Saturday, and it's an 8:30 game. It's an 8:30
Yeah.
p.m. game, so it's late game.
You got to drive back afterwards.
Drive back you and like I feel like an 8:30 p.m. Saturday game kind of throws your vibe a little bit, especially when it's the first game of the season.
Yeah.
Uh, and they do their intra squad is tomorrow night, so they're doing an intra squad game and then playing a real game tomorrow the following night. I don't think they'll probably do Rockbridge's intra squad is incredibly long.
Yeah.
You remember purple and gold that what Northtown used to do was like 15 minutes. Rockbridge
Yeah.
played 4:10s.
Yeah. No, that's crazy.
Yeah, at one point, one of the players looked at me and was like, "Why are we don't even play 4:10s in real game? Like, why are we playing 4:10s now? Like, play 4:8." He's like, "This is incredibly long." Uh, it did like it's hard to be bored at a high school basketball game, especially Rockbridge, because Rockbridge is good.
Unless
Uh,
there's 47 fouls in a JV game. That's
no, the at the beginning of the second 10-minute quarter, there was a like a 2-minute period where I think there was 7 fouls called, and I was like, my brain hurts. Uh, but to close out the episode, we are going to pivot to some notes from Rockbridge, their intra squad game tonight. I got to go out and see them right as I got out of class. They were the runner-up in Class 6 District 7, 22 game winner last year, lost to Hickman. And I'm saying right now that the matchup between Brock Camp and Reese Minix is going to feed families in Columbia this year. They are two of a very similar player. I think Brock Camp is bigger. I think Reese Minix has a lot of power to his game. Showed some good finesse. One thing about Rockbridge, and it's intra squad, so the squads are split. So you don't really get a guide on how well some of the starters play they mesh together. Some guys really impressed me. I think Dylan Davis was really good. He knocked down a couple tough threes, not even tough threes like off the dribble looks, but tough threes where there's a hand coming, the ball you don't catch the ball in your pocket and you still got to get it up. He looked good. I don't know if he'll be the lead guard for that team. I'm not sure exactly what their offense will look like because you've got two guys and Will Priest who played really well, and Reese Minix as well, who are wings, traditional
yeah.
wings. Um, Reese Minix kind of probably classifies as a four, uh, but we saw a lot in the offense tonight of him stepping out kind of into the mid post, even back at the 3-point line, DHOs, setting high ball screens. I like that their offense is predicated on kind of modern high ball screen looks.
Yeah.
Uh, their guards had a tendency to reject the screen a lot, which I think is not to get super basketball nerdy, is an epidemic in today's high school game is that guards reject the screen way too much. The only time you should really reject the screen is if your man totally bails on sticking with it and icing it, or if the high hedge is so high that you can't get around it. Then you reject the screen. But there were times where it seemed like just take the screen. If you take the screen, come off, find the roll man or find the swing.
If it's not there, kick it out. Or I mean,
Yeah, I think that they were better about it as the night went on. And also like it's the preseason. So
you learn from these things.
it doesn't help that in intra squad games, the other team knows what you're running because they're running the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's probably an unfair critique on my end. And I'll see them a bunch this year. So hopefully that's not something they're well coached. They're always going to be a well coached group. Coach Scanlon was there tonight, head of that dynasty coaching team. He's not coaching there anymore, but saw him giving input to some of the guys. So as long as he's still a driving force in that organization, they're going to be well coached.
Yeah.
Uh, Will Priest, I do want to touch on. He kind of, I think something was bothering him tonight. Him and Minix both had weird stuff going on. It helps it's an inter squad game. It doesn't mean anything. Priest kind of looked like he might be a little sore, just was a little tight. Minix was having a shoe problem. He changed his shoes like 4 times. Every time that I looked, he was changing his shoes. Like every time that I would realized that he was no longer on the court, I'd be looking over and he'd be doing something with his shoes. So hope his feet are okay. But it was a really interesting like dynamic that literally every time he came off the floor, he something was happening with his shoes. Donovan Parrish shot the ball really well. He was really, really good in high pick and roll situations today. Um, I think that their wing play is better than their guard play. They're going to be a better team down low. I would like to see Will Priest and Reese Minix really take over that offense um, and be attackers. I understand that in an intra-squad game, you're trying to get everybody ready. But there were some times where I would have loved to see Reese Minix, who did it well in summer ball, catching the high post, face up, make a move, and get to the cup. Um, you kind of saw him do it a couple times. His brother Max is a younger guy for that team. If Max was on him in the post, he was going to try to go to town a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but they looked good. They looked like a team that had some ranked potential, but they've got some guard question marks there, and we'll see kind of how that pans out in the early season. I think that they're going to have a tough time in the CMAC. Helias will be good. They always are. Jeff City's a ranked team. They're going to be good. And then you have to deal with your fellow Columbia schools in Hickman and
Yeah.
Battle. I think Battle's really good.
Yeah.
Didn't get to watch them tonight like I was hoping. I didn't want to drive all the way out to Wentzville to watch them. Final bone to pick about the Columbia schools. Final thing. This is my outro for this episode. The Columbia schools do something uber consistently that I cannot stand. I live in Columbia. I am
Yeah.
15 minutes from Battle. I am 10 minutes from Rockbridge and 10 minutes from Hickman.
Yeah.
Why are you playing a bunch of games in St. Louis? Like Tolton, and I didn't even
Yeah.
mention Tolton. Tolton, Tolton plays in a St. Louis conference.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the when you how UCLA is in the
It
Big Ten.
would be like if Hickman played like Lee Summit and they were in the same conference and you're just like,
Rockbridge, Rockbridge and Hickman played for the district championship last year. Okay. Those schools are 12 minutes away from each other. 15 if Providence is a little backed up. They played that game at Grain Valley, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, I know it was in Kansas City, but it was at either one of the Blue Springs or Grain Valley. And you're like, why are we doing this? Like, we could have made this game down the road. Like, come on. I understand that you don't want to give one.
dude, Mizzou would have definitely probably been like, yeah, you can play. Like they probably would.
Play it at Battle. Play it at
Yeah,
Battle.
for
Go
sure.
to Battle and play. Go to
Yeah.
Battle and play. Go to like, dude, I don't care. Play at Mizzou Rec if you have to. But there's no reason that that game should be in Kansas City. I don't think there's really a reason why. And the reason is because the Jeff City schools are 5A schools.
Yeah.
There's legitimately no reason why like the Columbia schools and Kansas City schools should be in the same district anyways.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that's never going to change, so I'm not going to beat the dead horse here.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it is frustrating sometimes when you're like, oh, well, Tolton's playing at Webster Groves this Friday. Like, really good game. I really wish it was in Columbia, but never is. No, and that's not obviously the Battle Hickman matchups, the Battle Rockbridge matchups are really good matchups as well. But then you've got
Yeah.
CBC playing Tolton at CBC, and you're like, all right, man, well, glad to know that this game's a thing. But yeah, I'm really excited for some of this Mid Missouri play. We'll get on to Southwest Missouri in tomorrow's episode and cover those big games that are occurring towards the end of this week. We'll have more preview and even more post game content for you in that regard. Joe, thanks for joining me on kind of
Thanks for having me.
short notice today, kind of stepping out of the Wichita area comfort zone, but we
It's
got
good
some
to
good.
come back home.
I'm cutting that. But you know,
Please keep it.
anywho, another great episode of the MoKan Sports Report. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m.